Okay, we are on part one of the books section for JTC 100. And like it says there, from ancient to modern. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of books to get started here. And I'd like to start the book section talking about something called the Sarajevo Haggadah. Sarajevo Haggadah, and we can see it there in a museum. It's one of the oldest surviving Jewish illuminated texts. It was created in Barcelona, Spain around 1350. Now, illuminated means a book highly decorated with the highest form of artwork available at that time. Spectacular colors, oftentimes very expensive, really difficult to obtain substances to make those colors. For instance, pounded gold. So if you wanted a gold image, you used gold leaf. Real gold, extremely thin, as we'll see, pounded thin. In the meantime, the media itself, the medium, the pages are from bleached calf skin in cases like this that have to be very carefully processed. And even the binding is really complex. What holds everything together, really complicated. Now, the Sarajevo Haggadah was extremely valuable for being one of the oldest illuminated, it is one of the oldest illuminated Jewish texts. And what was interesting, it was almost lost at least a couple of times during a break-in at the museum and shelling during the Bosnian War in the early 90s. It's really difficult to put a value on this book, but it was transported back in 1992 to Spain for an exhibition, and it was insured for $700 million. And I guess by now, what, it'd be $1 billion? So essentially, it's almost priceless in many ways. Now, there are a number of mysteries surrounding this book, including the image that you see here. And really what scholars tell us is that it's an image of a Jewish family engaged in a religious feast. And in the lower left, you see a woman, let's see if I can get my cursor to work here, my arrow to work, a woman with darker skin, which really doesn't match the rest of the family, perhaps of African descent, who is sitting at the family's table. And the big question was, who was this woman? How is it that she was so important to this family that they would share this special feast with her at a time when there was a clear separation between races and religions in that part of the world? And why was this person important enough to be included in this image in this very great book? Now, these and other questions haunted Pulitzer Prize-winning author Geraldine Brooks. And so she ends up publishing a book in 2008 called The People of the Book. The story focuses on an imagined past for the Sarajevo Haggadah. That's just something that Geraldine Brooks is very good at as a novelist. I would really recommend, picking up some of her books to read them. They're really good, like vacation reading, real page turners. Now, the novel tells a story, it's a fictional story, of a woman by the name of Hannah Heath. She's an Australian book conservator who's responsible for restoring the Haggadah. Now, the story alternates between sections set in the present day with Heath and then other sections showing the history of the Haggadah. Brooks tells her tale in reverse chronological order, following this ancient book backward in time as it travels across Europe from war-torn Sarajevo to the book's origins. And so in the process, she explains a number of clues such as missing silver clasps, what happened to them, preserved butterfly remnants that the restorer finds embedded within the binding down in the pages of the spine, various stains and spots which are all eventually explained as part of the manuscript's long history. Now, on one hand, People of the Book provides a great story that you should pick up. Like I said, it's a page turner. On the other, it's just a nice way to start the discussion of books and their history. Books embody the desire, the early desire to preserve communication, to preserve ideas, to do it in a long-lasting way. And it's more portable than something like a pyramid, right? Or something like a statue, or even a stone tablet. For thousands of years, humans have searched for, they've experimented with ways to preserve and transport their ideas in easier and easier fashion, working with substances like wood, or bark, or bamboo, or papyrus, or silk, or animal skins, and on and on and on. But even something like preparing animal skin as a medium for a book was extremely difficult. For example, here's an excerpt from the audiobook that was based on People of the Book, where the main character, the Australian book restorer, Hannah Heath, is describing what it's like to prepare gold leaf, like I mentioned before, and essentially what it does to your hands. Let's take a listen.
My hands are not what you'd call one of my better features. Chapped, wattled across the back, they don't look like they belong on my wrists, which I'm happy to report are slender and smooth, like the rest of me. Charwoman's hands, my mother called them the last time we argued. In the bright snow light, my hands looked even worse than usual, all ruddy and peeling from scouring the fat off cow gut with a pumice stone. When you live in Sydney, it's not the simplest thing in the world to get a metre of calf's intestine. Ever since they moved the abattoir out of Homebush and started to spruce the place up for the 2000 Olympics, you have to drive basically to Whoop Whoop. And then when you finally get there, there's so much security in place because of the animal livers you can barely get in the gate. It's not that I blame them for thinking I was a bit sketchy. It's hard to grasp right off the bat why someone might need a metre of calf's appendix. But if you're going to work with 500-year-old materials, you have to know how they were made 500 years ago. That's what my teacher, Werner Heinrich, believed. He said you could read about grinding pigments and mixing gesso all you like, but the only way to understand is to actually do it. If I wanted to know what words like Kutsch and Schotter really described, I had to make gold leaf myself. Beat it and fold it and beat it again on something it won't stick to, like the soft ground of scoured calf intestine. Eventually you'll have a little packet of leaves, each less than 1,000th of a millimetre thick, and you'll also have horrible-looking hands.
So again, that from Geraldine Brooks, which I think I've got an image of her right here. That's her People of the Book. And oops, I guess I don't have an image of her. And we will continue on with this. This is the end of part 1 of books, but we'll pick this up next in part 2 when we will be talking about the difficulty of creating early books.